On you, Greg.
I'm here.
All right, let's call the meeting to order, February 14th, 9 o'clock. Will you please join us in the salute to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have roll call, please?
Ricky's here.
Division 1? Here. Division 2?
Here.
Division 3?
Yes.
Division 4?
Here.
Division 5?
Here. All right, this is public comment on items that are not on the agenda. Do we have any?
Yes.
Fire away.
My name is Don Conan. I'm from the South County down on Wolf Road, and I'm a conservationist, not an environmentalist. And I saw in the paper where you're considering Centennial Dam again. And I'd just like to say that I don't believe it can be considered without a power plant. They're trying to turn this state into all electric, and 10 years from now, when the project is done, electricity will be very, very valuable. They've already taken out 4 dams on the Klamath River. They're talking about taking out dams on the Columbia River and Snake River for the salmon. And Columbia River is where we get our electricity when we run short. So the western states are going to have a real problem with electricity. I'd like to say one thing about windmills as an alternative. Windmills are very efficient bird killers. Utah had to shut down one of their wind farms because it was killing eagles at a high rate of speed. I think they killed 126. California doesn't count birds because we don't want to know the answer. But when you take in consideration that the tip of a windmill is going over 200 miles an hour, it's pretty simple to see why the birds can't dodge them. And the other thing is solar. If we're going to rely on solar, there's one thing they don't like to talk about: solar panels. And I'm a great fan of solar panels, but they cause a lot of heat. And if you're fighting global warming, big solar farms are going to create a lot of heat. So they have a downside. Electricity, or hydroelectric, on the other hand, is a pretty clean operation. I know it's not year-round sometimes, but if you take Shasta Dam, for example, was built in the 30s, and they finally replaced their electric generators in the late 90s. So those generators operated for 60 years. And they didn't replace them because they were worn out. They replaced them because of the technology had advanced to where each generator that they replaced could provide electricity for another 100,000 homes. When you look at hydroelectric power compared to the rest of them, you're talking about a hydro system. They're creating energy at about a penny a kilowatt. Nothing else, wind or solar or any of those, come even close to that. I know it's expensive to build. It's probably too expensive for us to build, but if we can't build it, maybe the state of California can come in and build it. But it should be done. The Bear River is ideal for that. 6.5 miles. There's no fish problems to be concerned. And one of the other thing is we provide water for, not Rollins, but the lake down at Sheridan.
Camp Far West.
Camp Far West. Camp Far West. And one of the reasons Camp Far West is where it's at is to restore the groundwater. So we've got a nice system. We could have a nice system of Rollins, Centennial, Combie, and Camp Far West. So I think it should be considered. an incredibly expensive project to do, and I'm not sure NID can handle that big of a project, but it's ideal if the state of California wanted to come in and do a project. At least they wouldn't have to, pump it full of water to make a lake, so, thank you very much.
Don, thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, we're closing the public comment period, and let's go to the consent agenda.
To accept the consent agenda.
I'll second it. Any public comment? Roll call, please.
Division two,
Yes.
Division three,
Yes.
Division four,
Yes.
Division one,
Yes.
Division five.
Right. Yep. We have general orders, water supply update, and surplus water declaration.
Y'all are very efficient this morning, caught me off guard. All right, so, good morning, everybody. I'm Chip Close, Director of Water Operations, and today we're here before you to give you a water supply update and potentially make a declaration of surplus water. We're at that time of year where Tor and his hydrography team analyze the forecasted water availability for the upcoming summer and fall months. We use this forecast the forecast incorporates the current storage and anticipated snowpack runoff based on snow survey data. This analysis is utilized to determine water availability on April 1st. And the reason why that April 1st target date is so important to us is because that's what's determined in our drought contingency plan, whether we make full deliveries or we don't. The key to that date is we take all of our available water supply, our current storage, our anticipated snowpack runoff, and our PG&E water availability, add it all up. If it's 235,000 acre feet or more, we have more than enough water for full deliveries for the next year. If it's less than that, we generally implement some stage of our drought contingency plan, depending on how far below that 235,000 acre feet we are. This year, we are above that mark already, but we'll walk you through the details here shortly. We do try to make this declaration as early as possible, and there are two main reasons for that. One is so our agricultural water customers can plan appropriately, order the appropriate seeds, plan for the crop sizes they're going to do based on the water supply. And two, we need to get our billing out as early as possible. Those bills are rather substantial, and so the more time we can give our customers to plan and prepare, the better. So the earlier we make this declaration, the better it is for everybody. So with that said, I'm going to walk through the water supply update. You all have seen this a bunch of times, so most of it's going to be very familiar to you. But I should also state that some of the numbers you're going to see on these slides are different than what's in your staff report. And that's because these staff reports are, a week to 2 weeks old. We've had pretty substantial weather change in the last week, and we tried to capture most of that in these numbers to give you the most current. Having said that, we also have the next week of more on the way. So even this is already outdated, but I think it gives you enough information to make a decision. So this slide here is our Bowman Lake Precipitation Reporting Station, and for those of you that this is new, the dark blue shaded area is the historical average. The colored lines are previous years. Where we sit today, this is actually as of February 7th. We are at 36 inches of precip, which is 90% of average, which is a pretty good number. I anticipate that if the forecast holds true, we're going to be above that 100% in the next week. You'll notice that we've already surpassed the total for 2020-2021. That was the drought year. We're already beyond that, so that's good news. Additional good news, NID reservoir storage continues to perform well. We're capitalizing on all that runoff we had from last year. We've held it over and we continue to add to it. We're at 213,000 acre feet. It looks really good. Don't be surprised if this number somewhat levels off a little bit, and that's because the lower reservoirs are close to full. The upper reservoirs have not started filling yet. We're waiting for snowpack and runoff to come in, so we will top them off later on in the year. You can kind of see that happened in 22, 23. You can see where there's that flat line there for a while. It's just waiting for snowpack to come in and fill them up. This number looks a little bleak, honestly. Our February 1st snow survey had only 55% of average for the February 1st data. But as I mentioned, this survey was done before the weather had moved in, and things have improved greatly. So in fact, I pulled the latest state information, and their information is actually based on electronic sensors that are doing remote reporting. We don't have any of those, so we're boots on the ground. We can only get one measurement at a time, and it's once a month. The state is using electronic data, and their report shows that in the northern part of the state, they're at 80%. The southern part of the state, they're at 70%. Overall state average is 73%, so much better than the 55% our initial survey showed. We anticipate we're also in that 73% range now, and it's forecasted to improve greatly. The next round of storms, the snow level is 4,500 feet to 5,500 feet, somewhere in that range, and that's perfect for us. Above most of our canal systems, but enough to add to the snowpack. So we take all of this data and we run a forecast. So what you're going to see here is we took the February 1st data for reservoir storage, forecasted out two different scenarios. The yellow line you'll see is a very conservative estimate. We took reservoir storage at where it was. We took that 55% snow survey data and then projected out only getting 50% of average of rain moving forward, and that's what that yellow line projects. Okay, so that's a very conservative estimate. The purple line takes that same data, the reservoirs, the snowpack, all of that, and then projects an average runoff moving forward. So you can see the delta between the two. In either scenario, we're above that drought contingency plan threshold for April 1st, so we look very good. I should also add in that this does not take into consideration available PG&E water for purchase. We know there will be some. They haven't made that projection for us yet. It's going to be somewhere in at least 15,000 acre-feet or more. But we took a very conservative approach in making these, so that is not included.
So both carryovers are quite good.
Correct.
And going into La Nina, coming in the fall, who knows what that brings, but would it be prudent for us to think it might be colder and drier?
Historically speaking, we're on the cusp of the El Nino, La Nina phenomenon, and it's a little bit of a crapshoot for us. Generally speaking, it's colder and drier in a La Nina year, so we should plan accordingly. But there have been years, I think 2017 may have been a La Nina year, and we just got hammered. So you never know. Regardless, we always operate the system as conservatively as possible, and we're always anticipating saving water for the next year. That's just how we operate after we make full deliveries. Any questions on that slide?
You know, Chip, I do have a question about this. Maybe you can answer it at the end of the presentation. But if you take the storage and expected precip numbers and overlay those against the climate stuff that we're doing for the plan for water, where it says we're having X amount of shortages, even in normal years or wet years and so on, how does this marry up to the climate change? Are we still expecting a shortfall? I guess that's the question.
Yeah.
Great question. I think what you'll see in those scenarios is, you can see in our historical average, we have that peak later in the year. Basically, it's June when all the snow runoff comes in. The climate change affects that by raising the snowpack elevation higher,
Right.
meaning more rain for us, which means this peaks much earlier. That's one of the major changes that we have to deal with. It means our reservoirs will fill early, spill early, but it also means there won't be as much snowpack runoff coming in the later spring months to help replenish us. That's one of the major changes.
I get that, but what I recall from those graphs is that even in wet years, we still had a shortfall.
That's essentially what Chip is explaining, because right now we rely on snowpack to
Right.
essentially serve as, remember, our garage freezer?
Yes.
So
Oh,
when
yeah.
it melts later, it fills.
It's our reservoir.
When
yeah.
we're getting more precipitation, we're filling earlier, so we end up overall with less storage.
In the models, you're taking into consideration future additional FERC flows. Which
Correct.
aren't in here. Right.
Correct.
That's what really.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's a very valid
That's the
point.
big difference, okay.
Well,
Thanks
also,
for-
remember what the climate change models are, right? You know, they're not an exact prediction. It's more of a prediction of the types of scenarios we should be seeing into the future. So I would never discount anything based off of 1 year actual data.
Right, I get it. I'm just thinking, NID declares water surplus, and Plan for Water says we're gonna have shortages. And, well, what's going on? And I understand it, but I'm just trying to kind of stimulate the conversation here, so.
And Director Calder's comment is spot on. in
It is
that
spot on, yeah.
The proposed in-stream flows for the new FERC license are included in the reservoir operations model, and those will cause deficits regardless of climate change. So those will only be exacerbated, and you wouldn't see that in the actual.
You wouldn't see this in the
Yeah.
app. Okay, thank you.
So I had a question on you answered, I made a note, but you answered it. You are figuring into your projection here either 50% or typical snowfall going forward. How do you, put that into, reservoir content? You take that snowfall and you have some water content of it, and you assume some percentage of that ends up in the reservoir?
Yes, correct. So every month, DWR puts out a forecast of anticipated runoff, and we can utilize those numbers to calculate what that relates to in runoff into our reservoirs. Plus, we have 100 years' worth of data, so we kind of can look at our cheat sheet and say, okay, this is a similar year to 1924. This is what it looked like. And I really could pump that to Tor. He's the expert on all of that, but yeah, it's basically looking at historical averages and seeing what they produced.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah, so when I first did this analysis, there was no DWR forecast available. It was just too early in the season, but since then, it has come out, and it is, where are they at on the?
For the Yuba River Basin, they're projecting 80% April through July runoff.
So,
80% of historical averages.
Okay.
so again, much higher than that yellow line we've projected. We're more conservative than they are even in this approach, so.
So when will we have any other questions? So in considering the PG&E water, we would be prudent to buy that every year and factor that into a 218 process, the cost of it?
Certainly, the cost of it should be factored in.
Yeah.
Is there ever a year, I'll ask that question later. It's more a hydro question.
Okay. Okay, moving forward, as I mentioned, the forecast looks promising. The 8 to 14-day temperature outlook in our area is actually a little bit below average, which is good. Hopefully it adds to the snowpack. But the precipitation is pretty robust for the next week or so, which is great. The seasonal temperature outlook shows the northern part of the state being above average, and precip moving through March, April, and May is about 50-50, so no leanings one way or another. I'll say these haven't really been that accurate this year, though, so take it for what it is. The U.S. monthly drought outlook, kind of a big change in this. This more white, basically no drought than I've seen in a long time. The area to focus on here is California and Nevada. Looks really good, so that's great news. The California drought monitor is a little bit different. I don't know if y'all pay attention to the weather and how these storms move in, but this year's been very strange in that we've had a lot of cutoff lows, where the lows come down the coastline of the state and just sit there and spin. It's been good for us on the west slope of the Sierras, but the eastern side of the Sierras has not been getting the precipitation that we have. So the backside of the Sierra is a little bit drier than we are. Ultimately, doesn't really affect us all that much. We're still in really good shape, but you can see the drought monitors reflecting some of that limited precip they got on the backside. The story across the state is very similar to us in that, okay, precipitation may not be at 100%, except for Southern California, but storage across the state is robust and all basically above 100%. Here's Lake Shasta, and you can see the blue line is where we are currently. They've done a little bit of modification in how they operate the reservoir statewide, and Dustin, chime in if you have a little additional information here. But in the past, they used to be regulated to a flood control elevation, and they would have to spill whenever they got close to that. A year or two ago, they loosened those controls up a little bit, and they allowed the operators to run these facilities based on forecast, which I think is a great change. And you can see the result of that here in Lake Shasta. We're well above average, but you can also see they started releasing water in anticipation of the next 2-week forecast. You're going to see that across a lot of these reservoirs. Trinity actually is performing this year. Got a little rain, so that's good news. They're finally above average. Lake Oroville, really on the climb. They haven't released. You can see where they released during that first round of storms, that little blip just below the marker there. But as of right now, they're still filling. So they released for a while and then turned it off. Folsom Lake, just filling. And Bullards has not made it to the flood control stage yet, so they're still filling up as we speak. So in summary, our forecasted April 1st availability is in excess of 276,608 feet from all sources, except PG&E, that's not in this. Normal year operations would be 235,000 acre feet, so we're in great shape there. Our anticipated October 15th carryover storage is 167,000 acre feet, which is a really good number. Our 8 to 14 day forecast includes lots of precipitation. As I mentioned, our snowpack on February 1st was low, but has made marked improvements since we took the survey, and we estimate it to be around that 73%. Reservoirs are full statewide, and taking all these into consideration, staff is recommending a surplus declaration through adoption of Resolution 2024-07. I didn't spend a lot of time talking about surplus, but I can describe that just briefly. And a surplus declaration is any time when you have water in excess of the needs of your customers within your service area boundary. When you have water in excess of that, you're able to make a surplus declaration. That allows you to potentially sell water outside those boundaries. We have historically had a surplus here at NID. We're very fortunate. And in fact, we have some surplus water contracts with some of the local municipalities. The City of Grass Valley, City of Nevada City, are both surplus water contracts. So they rely on our surplus water to supply them with water. So it's an important declaration and good to make when we can. And it also avails us to make other outside district water sales if possible. We still struggle with that. It's hard to get water outside of our area. But if we have surplus, the availability is there, and it is stated that way in the resolution.
I have a question. So, with the cities of Grass Valley, Nevada City, it seems like they're in a very vulnerable position if, in fact, we don't declare surplus water. I mean, how do we manage that historically? Because obviously we want to make sure those communities have water.
It's very difficult. What is in the contract is that in any shortage water year, they must abide by all drought regulations that we put on our own customer base, and they must cut back an equal or more amount. So that helps. I have a feeling that the state would never let us sever their supply. It's a public health and safety issue, but if you follow the contract per the letter, it's really only available when we have surplus supplies. It would become quite a fight, I think.
And do we have circumstances where we have delivered water to them, having not declared surplus water?
Yes, in the recent droughts, we have done so, but we have put some conditions on their supply, basically limiting their supply by 50%, asking them to cut back and abide by all of our conservation regulations.
You know, when we did that drought declaration, the city of Nevada City actually put up those little signs everywhere that said drought, cut back, well, they stopped serving, you know, the usual things that restaurants do and things like that.
Right.
So they really were just on it, and they asked for greater conservation than we asked of them, as I recall.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so they were right there.
We are working with those municipalities to hopefully get them folded into the district. It's been a slow conversation, but I anticipate those conversations hopefully will continue and
It's a slow to non-existent conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember on the 29th, we have a general meeting with everyone.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't see water on the agenda, but I think it should be there.
I'll talk about that in the general manager update.
perfect.
Now, any public comment on what you've heard?
I have a general,
Let's see if there's public comment. Not seeing any, we'll close that, and
I was wondering how we fared with the gale force winds that, and what kind of debris and crud went into the canal system.
Should we address that too during the general meeting?
Sure, sounds like a deal.
There's a motion.
Yeah.
and anybody want a firewood, we got a dry, huge oak tree in the tar ditch. But it's not blocking it too bad. So,
Okay,
do
so
we have, anyone wants to make a motion?
with that, I'll tee it up. So with that analysis, staff is recommending the adoption of Resolution 2024-07, making a declaration of surplus water availability in 2024.
President, I make that motion. I'll move that we adopt resolution 2024-07. Declaring surplus water conditions for 2024.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any more public comment?
I have, so, you know, I have, just a little bit of concern in doing this early. I support the motion and I support staff in this, but, what if things just dramatically change? You know, let's say, you know, we have this next round of storms and then that's it. Are we able to declare a drought? It seems like we did that one year, that, right, so we can go back and declare a drought in the event that the conditions warrant.
That's correct. I forget what year it was, but we pushed it all the way out till June until.
When I first got here.
Yeah, it was a weird year where
Yeah.
all the snowpack just went into the
Exactly,
soils.
yes, yes. So yes, the answer is yes, we can back it back out, and we have done so as late as June before.
That's what I remembered. Okay, thank you.
And the surplus contracts are interruptible. So, you know, once you start delivering surplus water to out-of-district customers, those contracts allow you to immediately cease it if we
In the
need to.
event of
Yeah.
drought. Okay, thank you for that. I wanted to know. Thank you.
Any more questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Division 2,
Aye.
Division 3,
Aye.
Division 4,
Aye.
Division 1,
Hi.
Division 5.
Aye.
So, Karen, I know.
Such an influencer. All right. General manager report.
All right, well, we will keep it fairly brief. Chip did such a great job already on the water supply update. So regarding the storm, we fared fairly well. There was one gigantic tree, did everyone see the picture of it? That did come down. That tree was, where was that tree at?
Yeah, where was that?
The Mag
Mag
Creek
Tree.
Canal, just outside of Colby.
Okay. There were other trees that came down, but it wasn't all too bad. I think that the storms last year and the storms the year before cleared a lot of the dead trees out. So it wasn't all too bad. I almost forgot what you wanted to talk about. The county is holding a joint emergency services meeting with the elected bodies from City of Grass Valley, Nevada City, and Town of Truckee, as well as NID. That is on February 29th at the Center for the Arts. They have set a draft agenda. I haven't seen a final agenda yet, so as soon as I get that, I'll send that out to the board. But it does intend to be from, I believe it's 1 to 5 with a reception from 5 to 6 p.m.
What is the purpose of the meeting?
It's focused on emergency services and emergency response. Some of it is to obtain input from different elected bodies on their agency's participation in the event of an emergency. I have a feeling it's gonna be highly fire-focused. So, we will get some prep together for you folks, so you can feel like you can participate. And we're happy to sit down with you also prior to the meeting if you wanna talk about anything.
Sales tax focused.
I don't know about that. Yeah, there are 2 sales tax initiatives being proposed by the City of Grass Valley and Nevada City. So we will get more information on that. And the only other update, we are getting further down the road on our voluntary agreement. So we are hoping to have something more set in stone, maybe in the next month or so.
Yep.
It's been very slow going. We should get an updated schedule from the water board related to the Bay Delta Plan update. Sounds like they were shooting for mid-March, but I don't know that anybody who's participating believes that that's doable. But as soon as we receive an update on that, we will provide it to the board. That's all we really had.
Kevin thought that brought something up.
Storm.
Oh, Storm, sure, got it.
The voluntary agreement, that's the MOU?
Correct. So
Part of it.
Part of it. The voluntary agreement process includes the signing of a memorandum of understanding that essentially outlines the kind of primary components of the overall program. And then there is a term sheet that's attached that's specific to our agency's voluntary agreement. And then that tiers into an implementation agreement that has more specifics related to our actual proposal. So we're working towards going into the implementation agreement right now.
That'd be a 15-year or 8-year?
It's 8-year with
Potential to
Potential.
extend to 15 total.
yeah.
So I'm a little confused because I thought the state was very much moving in this other direction on unimpaired flow.
There, it's,
Voluntary agreement. So if we submit this, are we gonna be, I don't know, jumping the gun? I mean, are they gonna be able to approve it, or what?
So remember,
yeah.
this is a proposal, it's basically a CEQA document that contains a reasonable range of alternatives.
Right.
One of, I think there's 5 or 6, I've lost count, but there's, let's just say 5 alternatives, one of which is the voluntary agreement alternative. That is the alternative that I think NID prefers, many of the water user community does. And, so the VA proposal is kind of operating in parallel to those other alternatives that are also being analyzed.
Okay.
And at some point, the water board is gonna have to pick a proposed project. That's expected sometime later in the spring. There is, by the way, anticipated to be a workshop specific to VAs, a 3-day workshop sometime late April. So that'll be a key point for both NID to participate in terms of sharing our proposal, but also for the public to weigh in and offer their thoughts as well. So ultimately, the water board will make a decision as to which of those alternatives to select.
Is it possible that they would choose, VAs and, or, our proposals? Yeah, a mixture of those things?
One of the proposals would be that you have a voluntary agreement pathway, and if you didn't have a voluntary agreement, you'd automatically follow the standard. So there is a lot of mixing and matching that goes on.
Okay, so it's just not either or,
It could be.
It could be.
That's
but-
an alternative too.
But it is possible, which makes some sense to me, of some sort of blending and cooperative, collaborative work done within that construct of north, south, middle.
You would hope so.
One would hope so. Okay.
So my question, carry forward with this discussion. Justin, why do you think they have 1 to 5, you know, it doesn't make sense. Did they create all those, or did they have input from them? Water
Yeah,
community that's-
both.
Yeah.
So this is a CEQA requirement. CEQA, the process starts with, a notice of preparation, a scoping document, basically an invitation to the world of, you know, at a high level, this is our proposed project, these are some of our objectives that we're trying to accomplish. Tell us, you know, some areas of concern, or what you think we ought to analyze, or alternatives we ought to consider. So you start really wide, you cast that net really wide, and then the preparing agency, the lead agency, in this case, the State Water Board, takes that information and kind of narrows it into a draft, which we're calling the staff report. That contains the reasonable range. The alternatives have to align and advance the project objectives, which are, again, you know, partly determined by the lead agency, but also partly influenced by the public process. And then you start narrowing that reasonable range of alternatives to one proposed project, which under NID and the water user community is saying, we are urging you, Water Board, to consider the VAs as the project.
So carrying forward, the box person, the German part, that says, the fish need X amount of water, this is the one we do. The science the science would point to what project we need, not a public discussion.
There's a lot of conflicting science going on.
And
And that's the part.
and
So
politics and all kinds of stuff.
So it's
Yeah.
a big. Thank you for clarifying that again.
We should probably report on this. The, Salmon Initiative, the governor's office did release they did this last year, perhaps August of 2022. The Water Supply Initiative, you know, projecting out climate change impacts to surface water supplies. And the governor's office did a very similar document recently, within the last couple of weeks, that they're calling the Salmon Initiative. You know, how do we maintain, protect, and even restore the salmonid population in light of climate change? And there's a, you know, series of, I think, 5 kind of broad recommendations and then bullet point actions underneath that. You know, just my own personal viewpoint on that is it's a bit of a mixed bag. Some of them are, you know, no-brainers. Yes, we absolutely ought to be doing that. Others are, you know, kind of head scratchers. Maybe we need to discuss that, or maybe there's some concerns about trade-offs or impacts, those types of things. But, you know, that document does, it neither explicitly endorses VAs, but it also doesn't endorse unimpaired flow. Reading between the lines, it appears to me that VAs are the front runner, that are, you know, kind of considered as the front runner in that document. Again, just my personal opinion, but if you have not seen that document, we can get it to you.
Well, I'd like to see
Yeah.
it. Is
We'll
it
send it out.
usually available on,
I'll send it out. I thought we had sent
a
it out.
link? It's just a link.
Yeah, we'll send it.
That'd be awesome, thank you.
But nobody's gonna place bets
Why not? It'd be fun.
on VAs versus.
I will, I'll place a bet on
All right,
common sense.
That's it.
Okay.
That's my movie.
thank you. Directors' reports.
I have nothing. I was busy keeping an eye on the storm in Kauai, so.
Nice.
How was it?
Hawaii's beautiful. If you haven't been, I highly recommend going and seeing the nene. They're everywhere. And the chickens.
And the chicken.
I did a tour of Old Country Rescue, which is in Placer County, and they are opening a new facility, which is made possible through, in part, through NID water. That's a critical component. And just for the record, they take in a lot of animals during wildfires, and so they are a critical piece of helping animals survive wildfire, and they took care of almost 5,000 creatures last year. Yeah, so that's a big contribution to the community, and they do great work. And then I also attended the Placer County Farm Bureau meeting on Tuesday, and there I learned about an interesting neighborhood, Jaws and Paws is the name of this rescue. It's about a mile as the crow flies from my house, and they have wolves there.
Wolves?
Wolves.
Wow.
And,
Do they howl?
yes. Neighbors are not too happy about that. The cows are freaking out, the horses are freaking out because they've got wolves howling all night, and needless to say, earplugs are in big supply up there.
Get a permit to get that?
Well, they should have, but they haven't quite completed that effort yet. So anyway, but it was a great meeting with the Farm Bureau. They're doing great work. They're having a, annual meeting on February 22nd, next week. So I'll be in Yosemite at a photo shoot, but won't be there, so. Anyway, that was what I've been doing.
All right. Ricky?
Thank you. I have been in training and regulatory, I won't say hell, but regulatory hell. I have been doing, my Form 700, which is a requirement. I've had to do the required Brown Act training and the harassment training. So I have been really focused on getting all these trainings done that are required of all of us. Get it done, and I got them all done.
Good job.
Do you feel like you've been harassed?
Yes, in fact, I do.
By us to get them done.
By us to get them done, and by some outside forces, which we don't need to chat about. But, so yeah, I've really spent a lot of time doing these trainings and diving into the details.
And by their very nature, they're harassment, so.
Well, I don't want to make light of it. It is really important information, but that is what I've been doing, so I can be better prepared. Thank you.
Okay, so my only report is the storm took out about half of my 125-year-old walnut tree in my backyard.
Oh, no!
Landing on my carport, but it didn't smash the car.
If it didn't take the tractor
And
out.
it didn't take the tractor out.
Wow, that was a beautiful tree.
Yeah, it's my grandpa's, drafted in 1915.
Wow.
It was our heritage tree. Anyway, these are living things and they die, don't they? This is how they die.
Yeah. Any more?
Nope.
Well, yeah, we lost about 10 trees, including some big ones, and one went exactly into the mower and didn't go into the house.
There you go.
So we're lucky. Went to the Farm Bureau meeting. They're quite interested in the unimpaired flow thing and also increasing storage on farm. I had a meeting with RCD, just talked for quite a while about is there grant money or something available for on-farm storage of water. Also, the op-ed came out, had great response with another follow-up article that was just stellar. Really showed, what will happen if unimpaired flows are adopted. We have a new puppy called Remy. Segue to what Karen spoke about.
It's a slow news month.
Remy is, short for Remington 870 pump action shotgun.
Everyone should have them.
Everyone should have it. And what
They work even with mud in them.
she's living up to the, name.
What type of?
Lab?
It has lab and, pit bull.
Oh,
And she's just
is she a rescue or?
yeah,
Very nice.
yeah.
Rich,
And,
on RCD, just reminded me of first hour of chipping this month free. If you have your, trimmings out at the, street edge, ready to go.
Excellent.
So, if you need chipping, call RCD.
And that's Placer County?
It's at least Placer County. I got the notification. I don't know if it's beyond that.
Excellent. Okay. Good?
We're good.
Chip up those down trees.
We're adjourned.